Right now, your smartphone uses a contactless payment system. You probably think Apple or Google invented it. They didn't. Japan built it in the 1990s, put it on millions of phones, and then completely lost the global market. This is called the Galapagos syndrome, the phenomenon where Japan invents the absolute future only for it to die the exact second it leaves the island. Today, we're counting down 13 Japanese inventions so far ahead of their time that the rest of the world had no idea what to do with them, until it did, and then quietly took all the credit. Number 13, the QR code. The story goes back to 1994 when Masahiro Hara, an engineer working for a subsidiary of Toyota Motor Corporation, wanted to have a coding system that can store several thousand numbers of car parts in an efficient way on the manufacturing line. Hence, he developed QR code, which is basically a matrix that stores several hundred pieces of information compared to conventional barcodes that hold 20 numbers. The code can be read easily and within seconds, no matter what direction the reader takes. The company, Denso Wave, patented the code, but then made the worst decision ever for itself by releasing the code for free. Meanwhile, Japan embraced the usage of QR code throughout the 90s and the whole 21st century. The western part of the world showed indifference to the invention and continued its business as usual until 2020 came. Number 12, the digital camera. The digital camera was invented in 1988 by engineers from Fujifilm, and despite the low-quality pictures and rudimentary memory storage, the basic technology was functioning as intended. Throughout the 90s, companies such as Fujifilm, Nikon, and Canon worked to perfect the technology until it was truly ready to compete with its predecessor. By the early 2000s, Japanese companies had cornered the market on digital photography, but then something changed. What the Japanese did not predict was not just the camera, rather it was what was connected to it. Silicon Valley knew that a camera embedded into a mobile computer would be far more valuable than the most advanced camera ever manufactured. While Japan mastered the art of creating better lenses, California focused on creating a system. The result is that the once powerful film division of Fujifilm has gone bankrupt, Nikon has left the entry-level market, and the camera everyone uses today is designed in Cupertino. Number 11, iMode, the mobile internet. But this is the one that truly stings. Back in 1999, 8 years prior to the iPhone, NTT Docomo came out with iMode. It was a mobile internet platform that allowed its Japanese subscribers to surf the web, send emails, make travel arrangements, check their account balance, and download content straight into their mobiles. Mobile internet was an actual working system with over 40 million subscribers by 2001. While in the West, mobile phones were still being thought of only as devices for talking on the phone, in Japan, the framework for everything that would later come to define our smartphones era had already been created, and then, with surgical precision, failed to cross over any frontier. For one thing, the entire iMode system relied heavily on proprietary protocols that weren't compatible with standard web technologies. No foreign carrier had any intention of embracing a mobile internet infrastructure that they couldn't control. Too Japanese? Not culturally, no. Structurally. The platform had been too perfectly fine-tuned to the specifics of its native environment and failed to adapt to anything different. And yet when Apple unveiled the iPhone 7 years later, it wasn't introducing mobile internet to the world, just standardizing what Japan had invented. Number 10, FeliCa, tap to pay. Sony created the FeliCa contactless chip in the late 1980s. By the time the world entered the second decade of the 21st century, the chip had found its way into millions of handsets and devices used throughout Japan for paying fares on public transport and buying items from convenience stores. The Japanese were paying their fares with mobile phones long before many Westerners had even heard about the chip and pin system. It was efficient, safe, and widely utilized throughout Japan at an extent unmatched anywhere else in the world. The issue here was that of iMode's failure. The FeliCa system worked on a different frequency and used protocols distinct from those employed by the international NFC standard simultaneously being devised in Europe. Two separate technologies, one built for Japan, the other meant for international acceptance. Once Apple Pay made its debut in 2014, it immediately established itself as the international standard for contactless payments. Ironically enough, Japan found itself having to integrate with the new standard despite having practiced tap to pay for more than 15 years already. Number 9. The Walkman. In 1979, a Sony engineer named Nobutoshi Kihara designed a compact cassette player at the request of Masaru Ibuka so he could listen to opera CDs during long airplane trips. This invention was about to become not only another cool product by Sony, but also a truly cultural phenomenon of the 20th century. The Walkman revolutionized not only the way people listened to music, it introduced the idea of a soundtrack for your life. In other words, it was possible to create your own personal space in any public environment using a little device. Over 400 million Walkmans were sold worldwide in various versions. At some point, Sony decided to make a rather strange move that even the best business schools consider today. When digital music appeared in the late 1990s, Sony, which owned both a huge record label and the best music player in the world, refused to produce a gadget capable of playing MP3s, as they thought it might decrease sales. Apple, having no music-related businesses at the time, came up with the iPod in 2001. Number 8. The Lettuce Factory. This one is far less known but equally impressive. In 2004, a firm called Spread established the world's first indoor factory for cultivating vegetables in the city of Kyoto. Completely automated production without soil, without chemicals, without sunshine. Hydroponic farms with LED light control, controlled temperatures, and humidity growing lettuces year-round at an unprecedented level of yield per square meter. This business model made sense. This technology was efficient. It provided uncontaminated, high-quality products that could be grown under identical conditions anywhere in the world, regardless of climate conditions. The entire vertical farming industry, which is now estimated at many $billion each year in countries such as the US, the Netherlands, Singapore, and UAE, is based almost exclusively on principles developed and implemented by Japanese engineers 2 decades ago. Number 7. The Robot Hotel. In 2015, the opening of the Henna Hotel in Nagasaki, which boasted a mostly robot staff, made global headlines for the spectacle that it was. Robot dinosaurs at the front desk, mechanical arms for storage of baggage, face scanning to enter, and automatic room service were some of the many innovations this futuristic hotel offered. This hotel received much coverage as it represented a strange possibility of the future to come. However, by 2019, the hotel had sacked half of the robot staff as they could not answer customer inquiries not programmed into them. These robotic assistants would keep the guests up at night, while baggage robots required human assistance to function properly in unusual scenarios. Nevertheless, the infrastructure that was tested out through these robots, face scanning for entry, automatic check-in, and integration with AI concierge, is being used today by Marriott and Hilton worldwide. Number 6. Maglev Rail. Japan initiated maglev test projects in 1962. The idea, levitate a train on tracks using magnetic forces to make them repel each other and thereby remove all friction and enable speeds impossible for regular trains, was demonstrated by Japanese engineers even before there were any online sources available. The SC Maglev L0 model managed to achieve a speed of 603 km per hour in test runs, the highest recorded speed in railway transport. Building a railway connecting Tokyo and Nagasaki via maglev technology has been in progress for decades already, but hasn't yet been completed due to the complexity and cost of digging tunnels through mountains. In the meantime, China developed their own maglev railway, which operated commercially in Shanghai since 2004, used Japanese research as a base to develop their own system more quickly and cheaply, and is now constructing its own network of maglev trains that outpaces anything Japan has done so far. Number 5. The MD Player. The minidisc was introduced by Sony in 1992 as a compact, compressed format capable of being recorded, erased, and rewritten indefinitely. It came on a small, resilient cartridge. Its sound quality was superb. It was superior to the cassette in every aspect. The minidisc player became a common appliance throughout the 1990s, and Sony made huge sales figures within Japan. However, the West refused to adapt the format. By then, the CD player had won its battle, and customers did not feel compelled to buy a different format from one which was compatible with their vast music collection. The minidisc became a near-perfect device with an invisible market globally. With the advent of digital music that used the computer file system instead of the disc format, the CD and minidisc suddenly became obsolete at the same time. Only the former had 30 years of dominance worldwide, while the latter had 10 years of popularity in Japan. Number 4. The smart toilet. Toto invented the washlet in 1980. Heated seat, built-in bidet, water pressure control, warm air dryer, auto lid opening. A revolutionary concept from head to toe. Washlets would be found in most homes in Japan within 2 decades. Washlets would be found in hotels. Washlets would even find their way to public restrooms. So commonplace was this innovation in Japan that tutorials would be posted in airports in order to educate foreigners on how to use them. Global market penetration, around 10% by the mid-2020s in places outside of East Asia. The barriers aren't technological. The washlet is clearly superior to toilet paper in terms of hygiene and comfort. Toto's engineering is excellent. Cultural barriers are the issue. Plumbing norms in the West, bathrooms not designed with an electrical outlet near the toilet, and a profound level of irrational psychology in the refusal to change something done the same way since childhood. Toto has been exporting to the Western market for over 20 years. Their product gets great reviews. Still, they can't seem to get into our bathrooms. Number 3. The video game console. Japan did not fail to conquer this market. Japan built this market, but the specific story of how it almost lost it is worth examining. After the 1983 video game crash devastated the North American industry, Nintendo released the Famicom in Japan in 1983, then relaunched it globally as the NES in 1985, essentially rebuilding consumer trust in gaming from zero. Sony, Sega, and Nintendo then spent the following 2 decades defining the entire console generation cycle. By the early 2000s, Japan controlled the hardware, the dominant franchises, and the cultural identity of gaming. Then Microsoft entered with the Xbox and something shifted. Western-developed open-world games, online multiplayer ecosystems, and PC-adjacent architecture began pulling the market in a direction Japanese studios were slow to follow. Sony adapted, Nintendo reinvented itself. Sega did not, and exited hardware entirely in 2001. The console market survived Japanese dominance. Japanese dominance of the console market did not. Number 2. The MP3 player before the MP3 player. In 1998, a Japanese company called Diamond Multimedia released the Rio PMP 3000, one of the first commercially available MP3 players. It stored 32 megabytes of music, had no moving parts, and was genuinely pocketable. It also immediately got sued by the Recording Industry Association of America, which argued the device existed purely to enable piracy. Diamond Multimedia won the case. The technology was legal, but the legal battle consumed resources, scared away competitors, and signaled to the music industry that portable digital players were a threat rather than an opportunity. Apple watched all of this. When Steve Jobs launched the iPod in 2001, the music industry had spent 3 years fighting portable players, and Apple arrived with iTunes, a legal purchasing ecosystem that turned the music industry's enemy into its most important distribution partner. Japan proved the technology. America solved the business model. Once again, the company that survived wasn't the one that built it first. Number 1. The mobile phone ecosystem. The full collapse. Put all of it together and you see the same pattern repeating at scale. By the mid-2000s, Japan had a fully functional smartphone ecosystem, mobile internet via iMode, tap-to-pay via FeliCa, downloadable apps, mobile television, GPS navigation, email, and e-commerce, all on handsets made by Sharp, Panasonic, NEC, and Fujitsu, running on NTT. It was a smartphone world 5 years before the smartphone. Japanese carriers called their phones full-feature phones. The rest of the world called them nothing because the rest of the world had never seen them. The ecosystem was closed, domestically optimized, and built on standards that didn't translate. When Apple opened the App Store in 2008 on a platform built on global internet standards, it didn't invent the mobile ecosystem. It translated it. Japanese handset manufacturers who had spent a decade building proprietary systems had nothing compatible to offer. Sharp, Panasonic, NEC, and Fujitsu all exited the global smartphone market completely. NTT Docomo watched its feature phone empire become a museum exhibit. The Galapagos syndrome didn't just slow Japan down, it turned a decade of genuine technological leadership into a competitive dead end, and handed the most valuable technology market in history to companies that had simply been paying attention. Japan proved that being first doesn't matter if you build your sandbox too small. But losing a tech war is one thing. Having your genius ideas stolen and buried by your rivals is entirely another. Click here to see the secret patents Western companies bought from Japan just to destroy them.